Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another UDI Okanagan webinar. We are just going to spend a minute here just making sure that we have all of our participants that have signed on. I see a number of you are logging in. Great. Looks like it's working for everybody. That's awesome. Great. Okay, well, again, thank you everyone for coming. Good afternoon. My name is Luke Turi, and I am the chair of UDI Okanagan. I want to welcome everybody and thank you for attending today's webinar. We certainly hope you're all well and staying safe and enjoying some of the warmer weather in the Okanagan. And before we get going, I wanted to just give a quick update from some of the work that UDI has been doing over the past few months and highlight some of the awesome things that are taking place sort of behind the scenes. One thing I want to highlight is that the OCP committee has been collaborating very closely with the City of Kelowna on the upcoming official community plan update, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. There's been many hours that have been put into this and in providing industry feedback with the goal of having an OCP that is both progressive and feasible. And as the development industry is a primary partner in executing on that OCP, this collaboration is vital to the plan's success. I really want to thank the City of Kelowna staff for their efforts to date during these stakeholder sessions as well. Of course, there are many other committees that UDI is engaged with on other important policy items. That includes Kelowna's DCC review, the Transportation Master Plan, as well as the forthcoming zoning bylaw update, as well as work that we're doing with a number of municipalities throughout the Okanagan. I really want to thank those UDI members, including those on the board and on these various committees. That continue to volunteer their time to these efforts to advocate for our industry. When we work together, great things happen. So now on to today's webinar, and I will make sure that we've got our title slide ready to go. Just bear with me for a moment. Great. So we've titled today's chat, "What a Difference a Year Makes," a fireside chat on the real estate industry, in the development industry in the Okanagan, featuring Scott Brown, Marshall McAnerney, and Courtney Deshayes. I'm really looking forward to helping to moderate the discussion today and hear what the panel has to say, as I'm sure you are as well. Please note that, as usual, there will be a Q&A session at the end, and we will welcome questions being put into the Q&A tab, which is as part of the Zoom portal here. So at this time, I would like to acknowledge our executive sponsor of today's event, Epic Real Estate Solutions, and thank them for sponsoring today's webinar. Epic Real Estate Solutions Incorporated specializes in creating integrated marketing and sales programs for their clients. From conception of an idea to the final sold-out announcement, they customize and execute real estate marketing and sales plans specifically tailored to your community. With more than 60 years of collective experience in real estate project marketing and sales, the team at Epic offers incomparable one-on-one service from concept to completion. And I'll now welcome Shane Stiles, the Vice President with Epic, to share a bit more about their team and introduce our panel. Shane.
Hi, Luke. Thanks very much. You can hear me okay?
You bet.
Yeah, right on. Listen, at Epic, we're proud to sponsor today's UDI event. Thank you very much for giving us that opportunity. Many of you know me, and many of you knew Mark West, the founder of Epic, and I just wanted to share a little bit of history on how we got here today. Epic was started 17 years ago by our late founder, Mark West, who had a tragic passing last June. And Mark and I were close colleagues in this industry. I actually worked with him on projects back 17 years ago, a couple of the first projects Epic ever did. And shortly after Mark's passing, I was contacted by another good friend of mine, Scott Brown. And Scott and Mark had a strategic relationship with Fifth Avenue Project Marketing out of Vancouver and Epic up here with towers such as 1151 Sunset and One Water. And Scott really took the reins after Mark's passing, and in actual fact, they had been in discussions to have Epic join the Peerage Realty Network, which is a national company that it owns Fifth Avenue. And Scott fulfilled that promise for Mark, and Peerage actually acquired Epic Real Estate at the very beginning of 2021. And as part of that, they asked me to come on and help lead the team here. So it's a very, very exciting time at Epic. We've grown the team substantially in the last half a year, and we're poised for substantial growth this year and a very exciting 2021. So we have put together a little promo video that this will be the first time it's ever been shared. So I'm going to share that at the moment. Luke, you can see that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Epic adds the most value with our development partners, really when we're involved very early in a new project, typically right at land acquisition or beforehand. It's at that stage that we start to focus on what's the target market, and we clearly define it. And then we design a unit mix and programming for the project that caters to that market. The end result for a developer partner is that we've designed the right product mix for the right market that will maximize yield, which means top line revenue and profits. All of that de-risks a project. The cool thing about Epic is that our late founder, Mark West, started this company 17 years ago in the Okanagan. We've been based here ever since. The exciting thing is that today, with the team we've built, we have over 60 years of new home development experience and greater than 30 years of that on projects based in the Okanagan. At Epic, we're specialists in new development, marketing, sales, and administration. That's where we focus. We're based in Kelowna, but our experience stretches across the interior of British Columbia, and it covers projects from luxury high-rises, urban townhomes, and lakeside resort communities. Ultimately, we leverage our collective breadth of knowledge and experience on every project we work on. This helps position our development partners for success.
There we go. So really, as a guy who grew up in the Okanagan, I've been here since 1978. I can't tell you how excited I am. All the projects that I see that all of you, our development partners, are working on, some of the projects that we're working on, we've got a very exciting lineup for 2021. We've 100 units in Lakeview Heights. We've got a waterfront townhome community in Summerland. We're looking at a tower project in Penticton. Really excited about our South Pandosy Lakeshore Road project that's coming this summer as well. We've got a great project out at Lakestone. We're doing a project at Tower Ranch as well. So we've got a busy year. We've quadrupled the size of our team, and we're really, really excited about 2021. And we think this is going to be the most amazing summer the Okanagan's seen. So without further ado, I will introduce our guest speakers today. I'll start with Scott Brown. As the CEO of Epic, our CEO, and President and CEO of Fifth Avenue Real Estate Marketing Limited, Scott directly oversees the project teams responsible for delivering sustained sales success and developer partner client satisfaction in Metro Vancouver and the Okanagan. Throughout his 30 plus years of work experience, Scott's formed and led teams that have set sales records throughout North America and Asia. He's also consistently provided high quality sales records and strategic advice and been a regular contributor for over a decade to the market intelligence report called The Fifth Dimension. He's also the originator of a similar report that you're all going to receive today branded On the Mark that we put together here at Epic. Marshall McAnerney. Marshall's principal and co-founder of HM Commercial. He brings over 30 years of sales, marketing, and management experience and specializes in investment properties, foreclosures, development land, including shopping centers, office buildings, mobile home parks, and apartment buildings. Marshall has been involved in over $700 million in transactions since relocating to Kelowna. And finally, Courtney Deshayes. She's a licensed property manager, a realtor, and associate broker with Associated Property Management. She brings 17 years of real estate experience to the team and is highly trained in all facets of real estate and focuses in residential property management. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks so much, Shane. And obviously, thank you to Epic for sponsoring today's event, and welcome to all the panelists. And before we come to a group conversation, we'll have a few minutes to hear specifically from each one of the panelists on some perspectives from their part of the industry. And I kind of wish we were sitting around a fire pit or something like that, so we could have an actual fireside chat. But I guess for now, we'll do this by Zoom. I'm sure our members are really looking forward to this conversation. The real estate market has certainly been the subject of national news, and the Okanagan is not alone in having a hot market, but we're definitely on the map, I would say, for the rest of the country. And we've called this "What a Difference a Year Makes." And I mean, we're sure every one of us here today could not have predicted where we would have been last year at this time. And it's been quite a ride. And so the market pace has certainly created some challenges, but I'll continue to say, certainly on behalf of UDI, and emphasize that the development and construction industry has been a bright spot for our economy as a whole. As we know, it has been a challenging year for many other sectors. So again, before we do a Q&A, I'm going to invite our guests. We'll start with Scott, who will provide an update with regards to where the new home market is at. Scott.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks, Shane, for the intro. One of the things that I'm definitely feeling pent-up demand, not just for real estate, but for getting together in social settings with people like UDI events. But I have to be honest, I do part of the reason I like the Zoom format is we don't have to eat kind of weird chicken or some type of salmon that we have like at every banquet every time we go. So I kind of like this format too. I'm going to give you a quick take of what a difference a year makes. It's interesting to think this time last year we were locked down. We were hoping to be unlocked down at the end of the May long weekend. We were really in the valley of despair of real estate demand, and what a difference a year does make. So happy to be part of the conversation. This time, in the fall last year, at the end of the summer, and with everything that happened with Epic, we decided to create a report called On the Mark, because the new multifamily and new home sales data, just relying on resales and MLS wasn't necessarily giving the complete picture. So we created a report with our research partner, local firm, New Realty Research, Richard Kabrowski. I always tease him that he's a bit of a mad scientist of real estate, because we'll have late talks at night and I'm going, okay, Richard, just explain simply, what are you saying? I'm not that smart, but I see what's happening. So I'm going to share some trends here of what's happening. And again, the participants of this session will receive our On the Mark. Originally, we were only going to do an annual, and so we took it to the last year. And then about a month and a half ago, we went, there's some strange things happening here. I think we're going to need to do a semi-annual edition. So that'll be out to everybody who attends here, if not later today, early tomorrow, and then that'll go out to the public next week. So I'm going to give you a few highlights from there and what we see. So there's On the Mark report. You can see we've broken it down by neighborhoods. It is going to mature each of these neighborhoods. We've added Lake Country this year already in the second edition. And I do think the vision is for this to become a regional report and have a page kind of on Penticton or Summerland or Beachland, just as things evolve. So here's what happened. Last year, the end of September, so the hot summer market, and we kind of cut it off with just before the end of Wine Festival, 486 new multi-family sales for the year. Not bad, considering we had a COVID year where nothing really sold from March 19th or something until probably the middle of July almost. And we had balanced demand for the products. High rise 31%, low rise 34%, townhome 35%. And experience shows that the summer's hot and the fall typically has lower absorptions. So what we're seeing now, the last 6 months across BC, across Canada, but in Kelowna in particular, more homes have sold since October 1st to March 31st than all of last year. 514 sales in multifamilies over the last 2 quarters. That's a hot winter, okay? It suggests an end of summer total that could be double what was recorded in 2020. So we could see over 1,000 units of multifamily. And I actually think that's probably where Kelowna is headed, possibly or the region to a 2 to 2,500 annual total. And again, monthly absorptions are up like 112%. The overall inventory is obviously down and supply continues to be an issue. And I know UDI beats that drum and we beat that drum. It's the hardest thing to get anybody to talk about, whether in the media or whatever, but it's a big issue and it's driving some of the issues around affordability. So there's only 328 units of unsold inventory. But more importantly, that's down 50% from September in 6 months. But there's only 13% of that inventory that's actually standing inventory. That's probably one of the lowest standing inventory levels that I've seen in most markets. Now, my Kelowna experience, by the way, does go back as long as Mark West's, and I've kind of lived here on and off, for business up here 1 week back. And I've been through the good stuff in the 2000s. I've been through the workout projects in the first half of 2000, sort of the decade of the 2010 to 20. So I have my scars too, to sort of, to see that this is really great, but this isn't always the way it was. What we're seeing now from a high-rise perspective is that we saw 129 high-rises recorded in the last 6 months. A lot of that has to do with Mission Group and their success with Bertram and their strategic release of that. That's 25% of the market. We do have more high-rise coming. If you go into low-rise, which is sort of where there's a bit more affordability because where costs are going, it actually represents 38% of the sales. So it was up 3% in its market share, and it sold 195 units. Then you go into the townhomes, and the townhome market in Metro Vancouver is absolutely insane. It's what led the recovery out of COVID was the townhome market. Townhomes here represent now 37%. We call it attached wall product up here, or townhome. It's up 2% in the overall market share and 26 unit increase in terms of sales. So all product types are moving well. What we're seeing now is interesting. I talked in June last year to a UDI panel, both here and in Vancouver. And I believe what I talked about was a bunch of things. I said that I thought the year would recover in 2020 and surprise people with its recovery. But I never expected one thing, I'll tell you in a bit, and that's what you see down below, price appreciation. I never saw that coming to the extent we're seeing it in the Lower Mainland, and in the Fraser Valley markets, it's mirroring exactly what you're seeing in Okanagan. Okay, so high-rise in Surrey, over 800 a square foot. Downtown high-rise here, over 800 a square foot blended is where new projects will need to be and can absorb. Low-rise prices are up $75 to $100 blended a square foot in the last 3 to 6 months. Townhomes are up, depending on neighborhood, $35 to $100 a square foot. Some of that is driven by materials costs. Everybody probably knows that lumber is just fiercely expensive right now. Some of it has to do as well with just, generally the lack of supply. So what's next? And these are kind of bold statements. I think we might see 750 to 1,000 units of concrete alone absorbed this summer. There's a lot of competition coming to the market, a lot of supply, but I think I would not underestimate the levels of demand. And I think on top of it, we're going to see something I've coined in the media, the term, the renaissance of recreational real estate. And look, originally recreational real estate was where people wanted to have a place and it didn't have to be as nice as their home, and they wanted to be on the lake, and then they became just as nice as their home. And then it turned into resort real estate where people wanted 4 or 5 of them and it was a financial widget, and then we all had to crash. This year though, partly due to COVID, partly due to an aging population, we are going to see the most significant number of new launches of recreational property than probably we've seen since 2002 or 3. So what's going to come next in our prediction, and then we'll kind of move on to the other panel speakers. Vaccine and economic recovery are coming. The vaccine brings hope, and it's kind of like where the way people look at summer. They're having the hope now, even though they may not have it. Older people like me have had it. I'm 90. And then you've got accelerated interest in development from outside the region. I have not seen this much development interest from Alberta or Metro Vancouver in the region in 10 years. I do get a little worried about some of the inexperienced entrants. And I remember very well, both here and in Greater Victoria, the crash. And I see some of the cast of characters showing up, and I go, ooh, I remember you played a part in the crash. You're not the same person, but you feel like the same person. So we do need to watch that and not create or somebody not executing and then blaming it on the market. So I'm a little worried about that. Immigration, I was talking to a local immigration expert, Robert Fine. He was giving me just a sense that there is an immigration wave of pent-up demand, like the pent-up COVID-19 real estate demand we saw. And also personal circumstances and lifestyle choices. The Okanagan region is going to grow. It's increasingly more desirable for younger and older people alike. And our Vancouver city's becoming bigger and bigger and more dense and expensive. And so there's an exodus that started several years ago, back even when we started Sunset. Greater Victoria is experiencing it. but there's more people that will deal with a highway than a ferry. But both those markets, Kelowna and Greater Victoria, are about to go off. And a lot of it's because of immigration, but it's also in-country immigration. At one project, 20 of the last 30 sales we did are to people from Ontario relocating. So thank you for that. Happy to be part of the panel, watch for our report, but that's kind of my overview on the residential multifamily take to the region.
That's great. Thank you very much, Scott. Look forward to asking some more questions about that as part of our Q&A portion. And now I'm going to hand things over to Courtney, who's going to provide an update from the rental market perspective. Courtney.
Hi, sorry you guys, I'm having computer issues today. I'm just going to share my screen here. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep, you just want to go to
so
top of your slide.
This is a rental market update for 2021. We're seeing a lot of we're seeing a time when we've never seen before in the rental market. The availability is down like crazy and the prices are climbing and it doesn't seem to stop. So just for some food for thought, this is the forecasted rental rates for 2021. Luxury average basic. So basically, if you're looking at a luxury condo, you're looking at maybe a downtown condo with a huge view, a brand new condo, etc. Anyway, so this kind of gives you a price point of where we're at right now. So these prices are the highest that I've ever seen, and I've been licensed here for a long time. So if you're a tenant looking for a place, I wish you good luck. And if you're an investor, I say buy as much as you can. So this is a graph that shows you the difference in rental rates in the last 4 years. So you can see like the condos started at $1,500 and now we're up to $2,450. So it's almost $1,000 a month increase. How I priced it is at the bottom there. So condos, bedrooms 1 to 2, single family homes are 2 bedroom to 3, and then the suites, house suites partial up and down are 1 to 3 bedrooms. So, and this is just all in central Kelowna. It doesn't include Vernon or Big White, etc. West Kelowna, Peachland. This is recently what I rented for March the 1st, just to give you an idea of what things are going for. This was the one at the bottom was a brand new condo down at Ellis Park. That one was on the 13th floor and it was 2 bedrooms and den, but that was a good price there for my owner. I was very happy about that. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about too is the availability here. So right now, we are at about a quarter of where we were at for 2018. So this is basically a snapshot of available inventory. So if I was a renter and I was going to see how many properties I had a choice of to move into, in 2018, I had a choice of almost 400. And now I only have a choice of 99. And that's if you can get a hold of the property manager or even get in for a showing and let alone be approved, etc. So it's pretty tough out there for tenants right now, but I see that we're getting a lot more inventory on the market, and that puts, I feel good about that because I'm worried about where all these tenants are going to go. Anyways, I think that that's all I really had to say for the update. Is basically just really tight right now. It's expensive and it's hard to find a place. I'm finding that most of my places I'm renting, I'm not even advertising. I'm just finding from word of mouth or through a friend or what have you. So it's a hot time for the market.
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate that. Look forward to chatting a little bit more about the rental market as part of our Q&A. I'll get you to stop sharing your screen and I'll introduce Marshall. to provide some perspective on the investment sales and commercial side of the market. Marshall.
Thanks, Luke. Let me share my screen here. There we go. You can see that okay, Luke?
Looks great.
Great. Hi, everybody. So Luke has asked me to give an update on the commercial market, and I'm going to try to cram a bunch of information into 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions after, feel free to reach out. We're just putting together our HM report for this year, and it'll be ready in September. We'll get that to everybody, but we are busy working on all the stats because, yeah, what a difference a year has made. It has changed quite a bit and unexpected for us, really. So some of our sectors have been extremely hot, and based on Scott's and Courtney's presentations, it certainly makes sense why. Land has been probably our hottest market for a few reasons. A lack of land, incredibly competitive to buy land right now. We're seeing multiple offers on everything. Land also goes up because people are doing a lot more density where we weren't doing that before. And such fast absorption rates also drive up prices. The investment market, cap rates are kind of down with interest rates. We'll show you some examples. Cap rates are way down, which means prices are way up, where you have some underlying redevelopment underneath the land for the future. And then surprising to us and great news, Megan and Lindsay in our office do most of the leasing, and they've been very busy, especially the last few months. Industrial remains very hot. Office has been surprisingly resilient, and retail, certainly there's some hard luck stories out there, and we hope that ends soon, but overall the market has been pretty stable. I thought I'd go through a little bit of the history on pricing, and just kind of a history of what's happened with land prices. And when I first moved here in 2007, one of the first high-rise deals I did was with the Aquilinis. It was on Bernard Avenue. If any of you remember, a project called 24. And it was such big news when we sold this property. Everybody was, it was front page news that, oh my God, somebody paid over $9 million an acre for property. On the weekend, Luigi Aquilini called me up directly to say, you know, something seems wrong here. It works out to under $20 a buildable square foot. How could it be so cheap? So I think what's really driving is we're seeing denser and denser projects. You'll see we have the price per buildable on the side. We base that on an FSR of 9. We know that that's really not achievable, but it's just for comparative purposes. But One Water Street, we marketed for quite a while, and you know, looking in the rearview mirror, what a great buy that was at $74 a square foot for land. And then the block, I'd worked on selling that property for about 10 years, and just nobody thought that they could do the density there. And then so pricing has steadily been climbing from there, as you see by the sale price per square foot and price per buildable. And then I moved to multifamily land. That's been one of our hottest sectors. And again, it's been driven by density and a lot of institutional money for apartments. When we first sold the conservatory, that was kind of the entranceway to institutional money coming here. RealStar purchased the conservatory and then a bunch of lands around it. And the apartment buyers took notice of the Kelowna market. And, you know, we kept building apartments, but as we've grown and population grows along with it, we've kept a low vacancy rate. And you'll see that Central Green and Underhill, you know, we sold those. Everybody just wanted to build a shopping center with 30% site coverage. And it was, you know, $1 million an acre was hard to get. Underhill, we marketed that for 5 years before we had a sale. Central Green in the rear view looks like an incredibly smart buy. Lately, we've just done a few deals, and we are starting to see land over $100 a square foot, up to $140 a square foot for 6-story land. But again, like Bertram, for example, there is a potential to get more density there, and that's why we're seeing higher prices there. Investment, this is, I have 2 sections on investment, and one to really basically the pure investment coupon clippers. And here's a good example. We sold this Anderson Way with the brick up in Vernon back in 2015, and cap rates were 6.5. And that was pretty much the norm. We brought that out to market a few months ago at a 5 cap, and we received multiple offers, and it's pending not too far off of that number. And that's purely because interest rates have gone down. And if you can borrow money at 2.5%, which is historically low, that really happened after COVID. And it creates a great opportunity if you can get these low interest rates, and particularly on apartments with CMHC financing. So you see cap rates dropped 1.5% on Anderson Way, and then over 1% on the Wood Lake apartment buildings. We've just also done a couple of little investment deals on Enterprise and Adams Road, and between 5 and 5.5 cap. And again, that was not really the norm a year ago even, and then that was driven by lower interest rates and strong demand for industrial. Where we've seen a lot of increase in prices, and we've got a number of deals pending that we can't talk about right now as well, but I remember 3-5 years ago, we'd hear about Vancouver Deals trading at 3 caps, and it didn't make any sense to us, but we did learn that there was usually a redevelopment underlying land value to it. And so we're finding a lot of big money coming into our market right now that they have cash, and 3-4% return on a great future piece of investment land is starting to look pretty smart to them when they're only getting less than 1% in the bank. So we've seen big demand there, and it's more like the Vancouver market used to be. Leasing, as I mentioned, Megan and Lindsay have been having a good solid year. Not crazy like my partner Jeff Hudson and me with the land. We've never seen anything like this, but it's nice to see it rebounding here. Retail, they've been doing quite a few deals, food and beverage, quite a bit of it. Restaurants, of course, continue to struggle, and we hope that they'll be able to open their doors by June and survive this. Industrial has stayed incredibly strong. And it's a tight market for buying, for leasing, and office. We're happy to see, I think that, there was so much talk when Zoom started, and, more and more people were going to stay home. And, me and I think probably most of you wish we were doing this in person now. And I think a lot of people want to get back to work and get to the markets. One trend that Megan has mentioned to me is that she is seeing shorter term deals on the negotiations, and but the market seems to be returning, and we think that the future is quite bright there as well. So this is our team. I tried to cram a lot of information on sectors, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to any one of our team members, and then September we'll have a full detailed report on all the big changes we've had in the last year. So, thanks for listening, everybody.
And thank you, Marshall. That's lots of interesting information there, and I'm sure we can touch on some more of that as part of the Q&A. So I'll invite Courtney and Scott to rejoin the session here, and this will become more so part of the, we'll say it's a fireside chat, because that just seems like a nice term. And it's warm and it's inviting, as all of these panelists are. So I'm going to invite and just remind those that are in attendance today on the Zoom call to use the Q&A function at the bottom, probably at the bottom of your screen. It might be somewhere else for depending on how you're watching this, but I'll be moderating some of the Q&A. We've got a bit of time here, which is great. And so while we wait for some of those questions to come in, I'm gonna ask a question for each of you, and maybe we'll just go in the order that you presented. So we'll start with Scott. Lots of activity, lots of interest. I mean, everyone's kind of heard a lot of the sound bites and the media attention this is grabbing. Of this significant amount of demand, where is this demand coming from? Who is buying? Where are they coming from?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because what led out of the COVID recovery was end users, not investors. And then the single family turned back on last, and it was Albertans again coming back a little bit into the market, and they hadn't been here we didn't need them in when we launched 1151. We didn't need them when we launched One Water Street. Now they're back. Last year they were back and people were looking at their license plates and, "You supposed to be here?" But now they're back buying. The difference is that they're back and they're saying, "I can work where I want. I'm 55 years old and I don't want to be in Alberta. I'm going to switch my primary residence and move here." So you've got Ontario, you've got Alberta, you've got the Lower Mainland, and you've got one of the most significant agings of the population on the planet, right? So you've got people 55 plus that are getting out of Vancouver because it's becoming such a busy and busted city to what they remember. And then in addition to it, you've got young people becoming a lot more mobile. You've got education and a wave of immigration coming behind it. So it's very strong end user and investor demand. It's not all skewed to investor, including the recreational markets. They're valuing their use and their time of use again. It's not, well, I'm going to rent it out and make a fortune and I'll use it once in a while. It's like, okay, I'm going to find a place. And if I do rent it out for a week or a month at a time, it's just to have somebody else help me pay for it.
Interesting. Yeah. And that note on Alberta has always been quite noteworthy over the past few years. Previous years in the kind of 08 high days, a lot of that was fueled by us being Alberta's playground in some regards. And I think it speaks to a maturity in our market, not just as a residential or a commercial real estate market, but as a mid-sized city, as an urban center, as a more mature economy. I think it's helpful that we have a much more diversified level of interest, diversified industries and sectors that are fueling our growth, not just recreational or the summertime.
Yeah. Well, just to chime in on that, Luke, because it's a similar pattern we've seen in the Fraser Valley. This recovery for BC has been driven from outside in, not downtown and insides out. And Kelowna's year-round lifestyle has significantly improved over the 10 years or 20 years since the rec wave, just like we're seeing in the Fraser Valley, where people go, it's not the bomb to live in downtown Vancouver. It's an amenity that when it's not poisonous anymore, I can go to a hockey game if I want to. But the point is, these second cities, and I don't mean second in terms of class, I mean in terms of size, there's a lot of people going, that's the lifestyle I want. So I think this is very, very sustained. There'll probably be volatility because we're in a world where cycles are just shorter and there's more volatility. But we're talking about a decade of sustained demand minimum, in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting. I'll put the same question to Courtney in terms of the rental market. Where are we seeing demand from?
I think I'd like to touch base on what Scott said, and I agree with everything that he said. There's so many industries here that are going crazy right now. Like there's the tech sector, there's healthcare, there's education, and like you said, we've got all four seasons. It's a playground out here, and with COVID now, everybody's realizing that working from home isn't so bad and it's not so hard. And why not go live in the Hawaii of Canada and work from your laptop, really? So I found the last probably 10 places I rented out, 3 or 4 of them were from Toronto. There was 2 from Vancouver. There was retirees from Alberta, and then 1 student moving into another place from Kelowna into Kelowna. So I'd say 90% of them were not from the area.
And is that a pretty substantial change from what you may have seen in, say, 2019?
Yeah, for sure. 2019 was a lot more of like people moving within the city. We didn't really see as much of an influx as we are right now. And it was more of, well, obviously it wasn't as hectic. Like the vacancy rate wasn't so low, and there wasn't so much on the market, or sorry, so little on the market. So that's a lot different, but mainly I'm seeing a lot more people coming from outside in, for sure.
Thanks. And Marshall, from an investment standpoint, I mean, who's coming into Kelowna? Who's got their eyes on the Okanagan market?
We're seeing it from all over the place as well. You know, we're seeing money from Toronto that we didn't used to see before. A lot of Vancouver. There's been a lot of money made in Vancouver, and I think they used to think our market was too small, but we're seeing more and more people coming from Vancouver. And most people have had a place here or have a love for the Okanagan as well, and they start to dabble and do projects. And as they have success, then they start growing their operations here, as well as Alberta. You know, they've made some recovery, but they don't have the growth that we have. So we're seeing a lot of larger Alberta developers setting up operations here as well. So it is pretty much around the country, not a lot internationally yet, but some.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to see that level again, not necessarily from Alberta or just from the Lower Mainland, but from other parts of Canada. And you know, probably some of the wild card is that certainly over the past year, without the type of immigration that we typically see, you know, what may or may not transpire after the borders are more open, and it's a lot easier for, say, the U.S. market to come back as well. So that's something to watch. Maybe I'll just, if anyone wants to take this one from your perspective, we're talking a lot about the Okanagan, but Kelowna is kind of the major market. But are these trends in the Kelowna sectors, whether it's residential, rental, commercial, are they being experienced in similar ways in other markets like Penticton and Vernon?
I'll jump in on that one. And it's funny because I work in 3 different markets. It helps me sort of sharpen my mind to what I see. Penticton feels like Kelowna in 2015-16. It is next. Their retail scene's filling in, their beer scene, their local market last summer. You have people laterally moving into townhomes with elevators, not on the lake, paying $900,000 for them. So I think Summerland to a degree is recreational and retirement. Penticton's is definitely, with the Kelowna's lift to $800-900 a square foot. One guy told me the other day when I was talking to him, he thought it was going to 1,000 a square foot for downtown high rise. That's not improbable. Penticton is probably going to benefit. And I think that the places that get a little further away, like I was talking to Diverse about Osoyoos, and they said, we're having a great summer pre-selling townhomes, as long as they're under 800,000. We had some bigger ones with legal suites. We thought they would be the bomb. They're having a little trouble absorbing them. But so Osoyoos and I think Vernon, and I even think the Thompson's going to go. Kamloops is good. Kamloops and Penticton are 2 cities to keep an eye on.
Courtney, Marshall, are you seeing the same sort of activity throughout the Okanagan region?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Scott's saying. Penticton's the next Kelowna for sure. I'm also seeing that in Vernon, there's really tight market as well. Right now, there's only 5 active residential listings in Vernon. So again, it's really tight. Yeah, I don't know.
I totally agree with and Courtney. You know, Kelowna is usually people's first choice, but Penticton is becoming very hot. We're doing some cool little developments, and Luke, you guys have built. You're in the middle of building a building down there, and I think that whole area is going to become a really cool, trendy area. And their city is very open to density and fast tracking projects. So they're pretty development friendly, like Kelowna has been. And I think that drives a lot of development. We have people looking to do apartments. If anybody has any land, please let us know. We need product. But it's got a vacancy rate of under 1%, and we're trying to build some apartments there. Lack of supply, but yeah, all the markets seem to be going great, and I think Kelowna and Penticton leading the way. And
just to jump in on that note, because we don't want to all be, it's rainbows and ponies, everybody, and woohoo. Our job is to help our clients make maximum results, but it's also to mitigate risk. So here's what I'm watching out for in all this conversation. There's two things. This time last year, I said, where's the canary in the coal mine? And I said, watch the mortgage deferral rate, but watch the mortgage default rate. If that number goes, we're in trouble. And it did not. The PMHC thought it was going to go, so they're calling for an 18% fall. The government has one hammer right now. They can't move interest rates. And this is what we should all be worried about is, yes, the markets got heated in 2016 and 17, and government intervention came in at multiple levels. That's the thing that's not rainbows and ponies right now, folks. We have to keep an eye on that. That little stress trial balloon coming on June 1st is driving demand in this quarter. It's only going to erode about 5% buying power. But if that goes back to its peak in 2018, where it was eroding buying power by 18 to 20% in some markets, that's going to suppress demand, but it's also going to drive demand for what we don't have enough of, which is rental.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Everything's been great, and you guys have been agreeing about most of this stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm doing a bad job. I gotta take the gloves off a bit. But what other sort of headwinds might you be looking for, or be putting on your risk hat a little bit, maybe either in the rental market or in the investment market? Who wants to take that one?
Well, I'll jump in on one. One of the things I'm seeing in Metro Vancouver that's here is stop overhyping when you sell something really quick in a weekend. It doesn't do anybody any good. You're actually hurting the market. The market's healthy. The mature firms in Metro Vancouver and here don't brag about selling out and over a weekend. It actually fuels politics, right? Politics, this business, I've been in it 30 years. I never realized it's increasingly more and more political all the freaking time. Okay, so we have to be careful as an industry not to do irresponsible things like hyping our own tires so much that the market thinks it's more overheated than it is. I do think we've also got to cut down on some land speculation so that when you've only got 2% of the developable lands, they should wind up with somebody who's going to develop on them, not Jimmy Flipper who's trying to create inflation in the market.
Courtney, what about you in terms of, do you see any headwinds that could maybe be quelling demand for rentals over the next 6 months?
Well, I think there's going to be more of a housing crunch. I just don't see, I really feel like the demand is outweighing the supply, and it's going to keep going that way. That's the worst part of this I see, is just people not having a place to live, and the prices going up, and a lot of people are going to have to move out of the city and go somewhere else where it's cheaper. I personally don't know how these people can afford these rents that are so high, but like I said, there's money coming in from a whole bunch of different cities and different countries, etc. right now. So what worries me the most is basically seeing a housing crunch, or the homeless population go up, perhaps, but.
Yeah, it certainly gets back to wanting to have as much supply as possible that it is able to be brought to market. Maybe I'll ask a question for Marshall specifically. Heard a lot about the supply and demand factors with industrial land. How do you see that playing out over the next 3 to 5 years? Do you think that pace is just going to continue?
It's hot right across the country and right across the world, and industrial property is just, it's short supplied. And with things like Amazon and the world changing and warehousing, I think that's why we're seeing low cap rates. We're seeing the price of industrial land has gone up from 700,000-800,000 an acre to 1.5 million plus. But I unless there's a real economy change, we all know that things are cyclical. But we do have a shortage of industrial land around here, and that's why we're seeing it open up in the airport and Lake Country. But I would say industrial is a very strong class for the unforeseeable future.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've touched on some questions that have come from the attendees as well, including affordability, some of the government policy. Certainly talked about other Okanagan regions. I wonder if we can just spend a minute. I know we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 world. We all have our sights set on, some more positive signs over the next few months, but I wonder, just as an industry, just thinking about things in the long term from your perspectives in your markets. You know, a lot of what we're in right now is hard not to think is we'll hopefully forget about some of these things in a few years. But what things are we going to be carrying forward in your sides of the industry because of COVID? Maybe I'll start with Scott.
Well, with our teams, both at Epic and in Metro Vancouver, I've said to them, I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. And I think there's things that have helped the consumer that will continue to do. The consumers come to expect much more information and much more transparency up front about a product. And I think we're going to continue to have people come to our sales centers, but they're not coming for the sales centers. The developers are asking all the time, I don't need the sales center anymore. I said, no, you do. You need it for a different purpose, and you have to manage it carefully. But the people who are coming to your store now are much more highly qualified. So you need to be engaged, you need to be involved in a longer day, a kind of 7, 12, 14-hour day of engagement with the consumer. The consumer has much more information, but I'll tell you what, right now, when they showed up at your sales center, used to be happy if 2.5% of the people who engaged with you online bought. It's now, based on sales presentation center visits, it's over 10% that actually buy. When they come to your sales center, they're not coming to meet you. They're coming to make a decision. So sales centers are still vital. They just serve a different purpose. And I think that's not going to change. There will be the odd person who wants the looky-loo and lottery and house up. But more and more, I think that actually has created a more functional relationship between the consumer and the developer's marketing or the developer's agent. And I don't want that to change. Let's give them more information. Let's help them make better decisions. I do think that there's pent-up demand for socialization, and we haven't had to have real estate events. I think that 2022 will probably be the biggest freaking real estate event party. Everybody's going to want one, realtors, everything like that. But I still think the consumer's buying more and more online. They still want to see it, but what happens is they come to our sales center. They're highly targeted. They spend time with us. We load them up in a system and they go home and they finish the contract over the internet from home. And that's not changing either.
Yeah, agreed. And what about your perspective, Courtney? Anything that we're going to be taking because of COVID that will affect the rental market in the long term, or is it going to be something that is kind of in the rearview mirror in a couple of years?
A little bit of both, I think. I agree with Scott that there's a lot less tire kickers out there. I'm not getting the people down the street that are just wondering what this is going to rent for because they live 2 houses down or what have you. With a less human interaction because of COVID, I feel like people aren't wasting their time like that. Like Scott said, everything's online. We'll do a virtual showing through FaceTime, and then we use DocuSign to sign the paperwork, and then everything's e-transfer, electronic transfer, what have you. So it's, it's very possible that I've rented to people that I haven't even met before for 3 or 4 months till it comes time for their inspections. But I think that people are, again, a lot more educated on the product than they were. They've got time to stay home and research it and educate themselves. And I think that that's going to bring more efficiency and more people, like I said, that didn't think that they could work at home or online, and now feeling like they can, and they see that it's easier and maybe better, and they're saving money from, parking and driving and all that stuff when you go to an office. So yeah, I think that it's going to be, I think it's going to be a lot more mainstream and a lot easier on the industry.
Yeah, certainly from my perspective, I've got 3 young boys and they can help me out with my email too. So that makes it for a nice experience at home. So we're getting to pretty close to our time. What I wanted to do before we wrap up is kind of pitch a bit of a crystal ball question to the panel. I'll start with Marshall, maybe I'll go to Courtney, and we'll end with Scott. So let's imagine that it's the end of the year, you're at a New Year's party. Hopefully it's not necessarily a socially distanced New Year's party, but we'll do what we have to do. We're welcoming in the year 2022, which sounds crazy, but that's coming in about 8 months. So when we look back on the rest of this year, what are we going to be saying about 2021? Start with Marshall. Put you on the spot.
I think that, first of all, we're going to be so excited to get back together, and I'm sure we will by then. I think it's going to be a year and a half like nobody expected. And, you know, these are the good old days in the real estate industry. You know, and it's a bit of a shame that the diversity and the gap between some of the people that have had to struggle through this, but us as an industry, like these have been incredible times. But I think what so many of us always believed about Kelowna, that it would really grow because it's got all the great lifestyle and now we actually have jobs and a thriving economy. I think it's sped up Kelowna's growth, and I'm just so excited to see the new cultural things that are going to be happening, the wineries, the restaurants, you know, new ski resort developments. It's just kind of fast-tracked Kelowna, I think, and it really has been incredible times. And you know, and I think that we're going to appreciate what we have and appreciate being back together with people. So,
How about yourself, Courtney? What are we saying about 2022 when the clock hits midnight?
Well, I'm going to be wearing an Armani dress, so I'm going to say what a record year. I know I don't mean to be all rainbows and unicorns, but for me, it's been a really good year. And I think I'll look back and I'll say that I wish I would have bought some investment property back in April when it was cheap.
Fair enough. And we'll go to Scott for the final question, and then we'll wrap things up.
Well, I definitely think it's going to be a party. This Crystal New Year's Eve party, we're getting a room at the hotel because we're not driving, and we're staying late. Okay, but I think there's times in life, and I've been through times where I've lost a parent and things like that, and there's certain years that I just wanted to end, right? And it's been a while since I've had a year where I didn't want it to end. And I have a fun, and last year was a very hard year, losing like not only my business partner, but a good friend who understood me, who understood in 30 seconds if I called him up, because he's walked in my shoes of what we do and the challenges with it. So last year I was done. I was happy to see the end of 2020. I think 2021, we're gonna have a good time, but it's kind of gonna be like that party that ended too fast. And you kind of wish it didn't end.
Well, that's it's going to be an interesting party either way. And it sounds like we might have to stock up early because I think a number of people are going to be getting all the food and beverages ready to go, even though we're 8 months out. So thank you again, everybody. I want to thank all of our panelists today. I want to also thank, of course, Epic Real Estate Solutions for sponsoring today's webinar. And as a reminder, the recording of this event is going to be shared. It's going to be shared on our website quite soon here. And so you can make sure to share that with other members of your team who weren't able to join today. And I'll just share a few quick housekeeping notes. Our next webinar will take place on May 20th, and where we will be talking about building energy efficient buildings. Stay tuned for more information as registration will open up for that soon. Also, we have scheduled our annual golf tournament for September 17th. At the Okanagan Golf Club. Please mark your calendars. We're very much looking forward to getting outside and having an opportunity to have some fun with one another. As always, please contact the UDI office if you have any other feedback or any other ideas for event topics that you'd like to see. So with that, on behalf of UDI Okanagan, thank you everyone for attending and stay well.